to our requirements. The generic scorecard is a crude tool. Julia tells me off for using this description. But it was designed to be used across multiple industries where the structure of the organization is fundamentally different to the structure of organizations in the events and audiovisual sector. And using the generic scorecard is a bit like using a pipe wrench to remove a nut from a bolt. It'll work, but a spanner is a far more appropriate tool, and what we're proposing with our scorecard is to create a bespoke spanner that allows us to implement and transform our industry in a fashion that is specific to our needs. But as I said earlier, we need this to be developed with your input, and it needs to work for us. The proposed scorecard, and I'm hoping that many of you will have read the draft that was available on the registration site, it covers a variety of events formats, including sporting events, entertainment events, recreational, religious and cultural meetings, conferences, exhibitions, incentives, film and television productions and audiovisual productions, and any other event that is hosted at a stadium or a venue, a studio or an audiovisual production facility. So it's a very broad description of what the events industry covers. It cuts across several industry sectors, including hospitality and tourism. And essentially the proposed scorecard will apply to any organization that generates more than 50% of their annual turnover from the events and audiovisual sector. In August last year, the NFVF, the National Film and Video Foundation, released their 2021 economic assessment study that looked at the state of transformation in the audiovisual sector. So they describe audiovisual in that environment specifically as film and video production. They concluded that overall there are low levels of inclusion and slow transformation in the industry. There is a particular challenge at higher skill levels and very limited transformation. And while there has been steady progress on the transformation front in terms of employment and management, there's been limited progress on the ownership aspects of the scorecard, and their report specifically highlighted the lack of self-sufficient and sustainable black-owned film enterprises. It also described how beyond the public sector, black filmmakers and producer entry. So film industry, just quickly, show of hands. Okay, so a fair number and absolutely relevant to you. Similar research to the research conducted by the NFVF exists in the events industry, where we find high barriers to entry for venues and technical costs involved, and perhaps even because of it, there is a high failure rate of startup businesses and slow transformation in the industry. As with the audiovisual sector, transformation at higher skill levels has been painfully slow. Black-owned technical production companies find it difficult to raise capital and access private funding, and there's limited opportunity for training and skills development, particularly the business skills that are required for people that train as technicians to evolve into business owners and business managers. So we've taken all of those things into account, and in order to address them, we've taken a look at the core elements of the BEE scorecard, and we've radically increased the transformation targets for ownership, management control, and skills development. And this wasn't a thumb-suck decision, it was based on the research that we gathered from industry. What we've also done, okay, so the slides are accelerating. I haven't been keeping an eye on them. Stay where you are for a while if you don't mind. Yeah. We've also increased the points needed to achieve the various BEE levels, so that while there are now more points available in each category, the targets are also raised. Do we know if these slides were made available to the audience? No? They were in Pretoria. They there? Okay. No? Okay. Okay, they're at the back of the document. So if the slides on the screen don't match up with your expectations, you do have the slides. Rather listen to me, you don't have to look at them. Now I regret having asked you. Yeah. Well. So just a few examples of how the proposed scorecard deviates from the generic scorecard. Just looking at the ownership targets, in this instance, the target for exercisable voting rights in entity. So can you go back to slide number 10? Man on the control. That's slide number 10. So if you have a look at that, you'll see how the target for exercisable voting rights in an entity held by black people is increased plus one voting share to 40%. So it's a huge increase. But our objective is to incentivize organizations to increase black participation in industry boards. We've increased the target, but we've also increased the reward. So instead of now giving 4 weighting points, if you achieve the target, the employer would then score 10 weighting points on the amended B-BBEE scorecard. We've also proposed other changes, and I'm not going to go through all of them. If you've got the notes, you can look at them yourself. But another good example in the next slide, please. There we go, thank you very much, is that we've increased the targets for the economic interest in which black people are entitled from 25% in the generic scorecard to 40% in the ETPSI scorecard, and again with a corresponding increase in the weighting points that accrue. If we move on to the next slide, you can see that we've proposed a significant increase in the targets related to the economic interest of black persons in shared ownership schemes and cooperatives, raising the target from 4% to 20%, so a 5-fold increase. But again, what we're looking to do is to encourage black people to embrace empowerment structures, and we're trying to encourage companies to sell shares to their employees so that the people that work in organizations are empowered. We're looking for greater equity participation from staff and of course from surrounding communities. So it's not just about the staff, but about the community in which organizations operate. One of the big concerns identified in the research carried out by the NFEF revolved around the failure of black employees to progress in middle management positions, and so we proposed a target to address this bottleneck. Now, this is a target that doesn't exist in the generic scorecard, and we've introduced it in response to the specific challenges that exist in the film and events industry. We want to upskill and create opportunities for the advancement of young people that enter an organization. Now we want to try and allow them to elevate themselves in the organization and develop their skill sets. I'm on slide 14 now, so I'm not sure where you are. There we go. So we've put a lot of emphasis on supplier and enterprise development. Again, we've doubled the targets for supplier and enterprise development, because we want to encourage companies not only to create employment opportunities for their staff, but also to create a black-owned supply chain that can feed into their business. And we've also looked at skills development and expenditure. This is something that Freddie and I are both very passionate about, and we've increased the target allocated to Trud. This has been a particular area that she's driven aggressively in the discussions that we've had. Moving on, just a little kind of bit of input on cooperation and collaboration between state-owned entities and government departments. So we've tried to take a collaborative approach in putting our document together, and we're very aware that there are numerous initiatives within government to drive the transformation agenda. For example, SACWA has registered several professional designations in both the film and events industry, and we want to encourage people working in the sector to earn a professional designation that recognises their skill and their knowledge and their competence, and the work that DHET and SAQA are doing needs to be aligned with the work that we're doing within the framework of DSAC. We're also aware that there are funding initiatives offered by DTIC, and in particular their film fund. And what we want to do is to ensure that our scorecard supports their transformation agenda, but also that the funding policies, their funding policies, support our objectives, particularly relating to training and skills development and industry certification. We're aware that the National Convention Bureau offers programs that provide financial support to event organisers organising events in rural communities. I think the SARCI conference next month is running in Stellenbosch, specifically so that SARCI is able to tap into that funding support from the National Convention Bureau. But again, we need to ensure that their funding policies are aligned with the transformation agenda that we've articulated. And again, various members of our panel are active within NEDDAC driving that agenda. So it's not about only what we're doing, it's about how we are engaging with other government departments to ensure that we present to you a cohesive and comprehensive transformation plan that sucks in all organs of state. And this sounds grand, but it's not an easy vision to achieve. So what are the challenges that we're facing? Well, whilst we published our draft scorecard, it is very much a work in progress. We need your input, and whatever work we've done will be amended based on the feedback that we receive from you. So this is your opportunity to provide us with information. We recognise that our sector has been devastated by the restrictions imposed upon us over the last 2 years, and you know, I see this including technical production and film and video companies all over the country, and in KwaZulu-Natal particularly, where even large companies have shrunk down to the point where they are little more now than a name on a board. We need to rebuild the industry as part of this transformation agenda. In the events industry, more than 30% of our AV technical crew are now working in the Middle East, in Qatar. Everybody says Dubai. Of course, there are many people that have moved to Dubai, but in Qatar and Saudi Arabia. Qatar in advance of the FIFA World Cup. In Saudi Arabia, the events industry seems to be booming at the moment. So about 30% of the technical crew that previously worked in the region are now working in the Middle East. They're earning hard currency, they're working in a tax-free environment, they're working on interesting and exciting projects that advance their CV. And we have no idea whether those people are going to come back, and when we've discussed it, our expectation is that they probably won't. The brain drain in the events and audiovisual industry is real. Film and video companies all over build the industry as part of this transformation agenda. In the events industry, more adversely affect our ability to host world-class events. Training is obviously part of the solution, and in the events industry we have 4 schools that are registered to deliver the National Certificate in Live Events Technical Production. It's a SAQA qualification at an NQF level 4. It's a qualification issued by or awarded by Tshwane University of Technology and Durban University of Technology. But again, as a result of the COVID pandemic, attendance and registration for those qualifications has dipped. And we find ourselves now, at a time when we need more competent people, we find ourselves in a situation where there are less people available. Earlier this week, I received of COVID restrictions. You see, in the sector have moved on. It's hard to sell, it's hard to embrace a commitment to transformation when you're having to sell off equipment and when the bailiffs are knocking on your door. So a very difficult situation that we need to take into account when we are working on our the development of our transformation plan. Sorry, Mr. Slideman, can you leap ahead to slide number 19, please? The British film industry, suggesting that by 2025 there would be a shortfall of 40,000 workers, with shooting schedules in the UK already affected. This skill shortage in the UK is being addressed in part by a call for additional training, and of course this is one of the things that we need to call for in South Africa as well. But what they're doing in the UK is harnessing talented crew from around the world. And right now, British film companies are actively recruiting South African crew to come and work in the UK. It's great for them because they get access to experienced people. It's devastating for us because not only do we need to recruit new people, but the process of training them up is one that it just takes a really long time. Our sector is facing a real economic challenge, and we desperately need to focus on reviving the sector in order to create a sustainable future. At the same time, career paths for young people, cooperation and collaboration between existing companies and emerging black-owned businesses, and we need to create opportunities for black-owned business to access the funding that they need for capital investment and business development. So this isn't a tick box exercise in which we pay lip service to the process of public engagement. The scorecard will impact everybody in the sector. We need your input. You can either participate in the development of a bespoke scorecard that serves our interests, or you can live with the consequences of the generic scorecard, the pipe wrench that I described earlier on, and which of those options you go for, it's really up to you. But in real terms, our collective opinion is that unless we work together to drive the transformation agenda, our industry is in serious trouble today and over the next several years. So that's all I really need to share. Maybe you can just progress to slide number 20, slide man, and put the concluding comments up on the screen. Should have brought my clicker. Okay, it doesn't seem to be listening to me. This is now the time that we open up for questions, so I'm going to hand back to Julia, and yeah, I'm done. The slides aren't, but I am. Yeah.
Just with that, it's back to me. You will get opportunities to engage on the presentation and do your questions and answers. But I just wanted a brief from my side. The contribution of the events and technical industry, contribution to GDP, stands at almost 7.7 billion US dollars. I just want that to sink in. And it is projected, right, that it will grow to 10.2 billion US dollars in 2028, in a few years' time. So my question to you would always be, do you want to be part of that? Okay, good. So the thing is, also this industry seems to support directly, these are known figures. I'm sure there are lots of informal figures out there. Directly it contributes 250,000 jobs directly. So employment will be the hosting of an event, will be taking part in the infrastructure of the event, right? And the logistics. And it also has, of course, a direct link to tourism. First thing I heard when we arrived in KZN and I was, enjoying a drink at the beachfront is that, is it tonight or tomorrow? Joyous celebration is here tonight. Sold out within 5 minutes or even before they went online, right? So it shows you what events do to a place. People from Johannesburg will travel all the way to KZN to enjoy a weekend of joyous celebration. Also, I hear that next week, it's already been sold out. A Maskandi event is taking place at Moses Mabhida. I would have definitely wanted to come. Is that this? Tomorrow. Oh, so there's a lot happening in KZN. But it shows you how events contribute to the GDP. It also tells you, especially how we Africans enjoy entertainment, right? We are the entertainers, we enjoy entertainment. The question is, are we the owners of that entertainment? 30% of marketing budgets of state-owned enterprises or any company, private companies, are spent on live events as part of their marketing, right? These days when you market goods, your goods and services, events play a huge contribution. Technical, be it film, I had some filmmakers in the room. So I just wanted that to sink in, that why are you here today? And to make sure that one of our panel members, I don't say who, was quoted as saying, events industry is the engine room for powering the recovery of the economy. And I believe, hearing these figures, we certainly are. And I say we in this room. Why is your code so important? Because the BE Act has a section 10, that says that government can only do business with companies that comply to a certain level, a certain BE status. Only then government can do business. So I'll give you an example what happened in the automotive industry. The automotive industry gets an incentive, it's a tax allowance. It's the only reason why OEMs are in the country, otherwise they would go to another country. It's that simple, right? So why are the Mercedes-Benz, the Volkswagens, Toyotas assembling their cars here? A big part is the incentive that they get, and that runs into billions. But in order for them to get that incentive, they need to have a compliant, they can't be non-compliant BE level. To get that BE level status, they measure themselves on those 5 elements, right? This therefore has a domino effect. A Mercedes-Benz wants an incentive, it therefore looks at who are my suppliers. The suppliers therefore must also have a good empowerment status. So it will look, with whom do we do business as Mercedes-Benz? Who did we invite to do our events? Who is doing our sound during our conferences? When we have business-to-business meetings with producers all over the world, right? Who are the people who are doing the sound engineering, who are doing the lighting? That's where we filmmakers, in COVID, all went to the streamers. People enjoyed movies. People enjoyed local movies. For the longest time, South African filmmakers have been told that our movies needs to be in English. The highest grossing movie on Netflix was a South Korean Squid Game, and it was done 100% in South Korean. And people enjoyed subtitles. So it's time that we as South African also make our content in the language we are feeling comfortable with, in the language that we understand, and in the language we want to tell our stories in. But importantly, we not only want to be service providers to your Tom Cruises who come and shoot their movies here, and they're welcome, but we also want to create our own content and own the content. That is important. So that's a little bit of me, and just to emphasize why it's important that we're here in the room, it's therefore very important that even when I, go to a tender for government or a Mercedes-Benz or Unilever or Massmart, that I have a BE level status that I'm conceived to be a company that is empowered. And we also want to give support to black-owned companies. And it is the only tool that we have to ensure that that happens. It might not be the perfect tool, and it's one of the various tools, but the BE Act and the BE codes for now is the only tool that we have to ensure that transformation takes place. Now, just as a moderator, while I'll take my seat. I'm opening for questions and answers from the room and engagement with the forum. Kindly introduce yourself, just briefly, and also briefly, one question each, so that everybody gets a chance. I'd also like to ask, can I have some roving mics? There is a mic there, but it's going to be difficult for people in the middle to get to the mic. So I don't know if those mics can be roving mics. I'm just looking at the people, but okay. Let's start. The roving mics will come. I'll take 3 questions each. Right? I'm one of those moderators that like walking. I take 3 questions each. And for now that there are no roving mics, can I see your questions? There are roving mics, but there's nobody to help us with them. They're not roving, but there's nothing wrong. I like the informal ways. Being informal is always better than being formal. I know. I think maybe you don't. What's happening? I think maybe he's getting difficult, right? We're just starting now.
Thanks. My name is Lebogang Musioni. I'm in a technical industry. Mine will be first. I'll start with a comment to say thank you. I thought I will never say the words events technical policy. The only thing I want to ask is about safety in events. I don't see anything about safety in events, and that's another industry that brings a lot of income. Secondly, I would like to ask, does this document, it doesn't show anything about monitoring and enforcement? Because you know, in some of the industries or in some places, some people will always use fronting. I saw something about fronting, but who will monitor that? Who will be working on it? Thank you. Other things, so it's not a question, it's just a comment. I perused through this document. I only received it this morning. So I knew about this process for a long time, but I never seen the contents of the document. And I'm very, very worried that my participation into this document is going to be limited to what I've perused. I haven't gone through it better. So I just want to ask you, is there any other chance of maybe putting a written submissions later before it goes for any presentation? Thank you.
Is there any other hand, or shall we answer?
Good day. My name is Tebo Moroi from Bethlehem in Town Futengela district. My question is, I always ask this question to a lot of workshops, that for people like us who come from the rural areas whereby there's no technology, there's no means of communication, how do we make sure that such information get to us? And also, I would like to know about the B-BBEE status. Personally, I don't understand what's happening. I would like if we can get a workshop on that specifically, so that I know what's my level status when I apply. Thank you.
I saw the third and last for this round. Yeah.
Okay, my name is Melody Chikoza. I am a technical producer from the ETPTF. So I have a question here based on the social and economic factors. How do poor people get this as a healthy ranking from education, employment, income, and family social support and community safety? Because on the document, I didn't see anything that talks about the safety.
Thank you.
Did you get that?
Yes, I would give Kevin to answer the first question based on safety and then.
So I think there are many different organizations that are active in this process, and the Event Safety Council is a subsidiary of SACIA, so it's one of the organizations that I run. For the last 15 years we've been working with the SABS, and 15 years, actually about 12 years ago, we published a document called SANS 10366, so it's a national standard in event safety, and we are actively involved in the process of developing event safety protocols. So event safety is very much part of what we're looking at, but it's not part of the BEE scorecard. And that's what I meant when I spoke during my presentation about having all organs of state coordinating their activities to drive the development of the events industry. So standards are run by, or the development of standards is carried out through the South African Bureau of Standards, and SANS 10366 is the standard for safety in the events industry. You also asked the question about an opportunity to provide input to the process after this meeting, and absolutely we will continue to receive information once this meeting is concluded, and we will take all of the feedback that we receive into account as we develop the final draft scorecard that will then be published. So I hope I've answered your question. You can, but perhaps let's let the other questions and then we'll come back to you. Yeah?
Morning, everybody, and welcome. Thank you so much for being here this morning. I'd like to tackle the question on the monitoring process as a draft. It is a work in progress. So yes, it's very important that once implemented, it's not ever going to be successful if it's not monitored. So that is where our government departments come in, and when you think about fronting, as you did bring up, what we have done is we've tried to incorporate the codes in such a way that skills development and training programs are incorporated into our documents and into the BEE process of every organization, no matter what size. So when you start working at any level, whether you're in a rural area or you're in a metropolitan area, you all have equal opportunity, and that there is a progression based on your skills development, and that there is an ideal path you need to go through in order to become more successful and grow into a position. So ideally what we're saying is that within the submissions that are made from companies to government, it is vitally important that that career path is laid out, and to communicate with the rural areas a lot more. On-site filmmaking events are happening in the smaller areas, so we urge you to get involved in your communities and help grow that. You've got a voice, you need to use it, and this document or this process is going to allow you the starting point of that. We're not saying it's the ending point, but it is the starting point for everybody to be able to grow, develop, and become trained, whether you're in a rural area, whether you are living in a big city. It's all about equal opportunity for growth. Thank you very much. I hope that answers some of your questions. That was the one. I'd like to just briefly to add on, give the mic to the chairperson. Just to deal on the enforcement and the vote.
Oh, yes, thanks very much, moderator. I'm aware that Leon has touched on the enforcement. It is obviously the departments that are involved here, which is DTIC and DSAC, which will do the enforcement. As for the monitoring, this forum, after it has undergone the processes of the gazetting and all of that, the minister will reconstitute it into a charter. And the charter council itself will be the one doing both the monitoring and enforcement at that stage. Because we will be receiving the BEE reports on entities that are specifically doing business with government. And so we'll be able to monitor those progresses in those areas. As for the gazetting, my colleague over there asked about the gazetting processes. I mean, the inputs, how are you going to be able to make written or oral submissions? The processes that we've undertaken now is to go to various provinces, and in fact to all provinces of South Africa, so that we can get inputs from you. And once we've done that, we'll consolidate whatever inputs into this document and we'll gazette it. And once we start the gazetting, it's not the end of any inputs. Once this document is gazetted, you'll have a period. It could be a month, it could be 60 days, it could be 6 months or a year, in which you have an opportunity to make further inputs. So this is not the end of it. You will still, through the process of the gazetting, be able to do further inputs into this document.
Morning, everybody. Firstly, I just want to also extend once again just a major sense of appreciation from the panel, having participated in this document. But for all of you getting up this morning and making it a point of coming here. One of the biggest problems in our economy, the economy is still so cramped and so far. Moderator opened with, and then specifically some of the questions. This document is in a sense, it's one instrument in a toolbox. If you think about a toolbox, I don't know if we had that slide up this morning with the various tools, but essentially this would be one of the handy tools. If you open the toolbox, this is like the pliers. The pliers is a very adaptable thing. You can twist things with it, you can cut things with it. So it's a handy tool to have, but it is still just one tool in that toolbox. Other regulations, legislation, and things like each and every one of you being, in a sense, a champion and a foot soldier for this process of empowerment is extremely important. So, if anything from my part this morning, I would like to instill in each of you this burning desire to be a champion for this, not only confining, how can I get ahead, how can I get, but to also promote and actively engage with conversation and dialogue everywhere you are, to bring people along with this process. And rather than making it a disparaging one about we fighting them, let's start making it all-inclusive as a nation, to realize that it's an economic imperative for us to be successful. That includes local content and all of those other things that some of my colleagues have alluded to. So I just want to introduce that part of the conversation as well.
There was a question based on the BE status, and I think it was a very good question. So you cannot do BE in 5 minutes, but I'll do very briefly. It's very simple, actually, right? So you look at your company and who you are. If you make an annual revenue up to 10 million, you are seen as an exempted micro enterprise. So if your revenue is less than 10 million annually, you're an exempted micro enterprise. You get an automatic BE status. If you are making less than 10 million and your company is 100% owned by a black person, and a black person is anybody who's an African, an Indian, or colored, yeah? And there's always somebody who will say the Chinese. It's a small group of Chinese who have been in this country as long as Indian people have been in this country, since the 1900s. They are considered as black people, so the black beneficiaries, anybody who's South African, Indian, and colored. So unfortunately, our African brothers and sisters from Swaziland, Lesotho, Botswana, Nigeria are not considered as Africans in terms of the BE legislation, right? There'll always be Africans to me, but in terms of the BE legislation, they're not considered African, right? So that is important. You own a company and it's 100% owned by black people, then you get an automatic BE level status 1, which means you're the most empowered that you can be, right? If you are 51% black owned, so you did a partnership with somebody who is not black, right? For instance, thank you. Oh, or you partnered with somebody from Lesotho or Swaziland, right? But it's right, if you partnered with a white person, then you would be considered a BE level 2. So 1 is high and it goes all the way to 8 and non-compliant, so then you're considered BE level 2. If your company makes between 10 million and 50 million, you're called a qualifying small enterprise. And I always look at my ex-colleagues, right? You're considered small, yes. On a scorecard. That scorecard that you see, they'll be measured. If you're a large company, 50%, if you're a large company, you make more than 50 million on the scorecard. So you will be audited. Somebody will come and do an audit. They'll look at your ownership. You get a certain amount of points. They look at your management control. They look at your skills development. They look at your preferential procurement. Who do you buy your goods and services from? A very important one. And then they look at social economic, right? And that is based on your percentage of your net profit after tax. So that's how it works. So it's very easy. All you need to do is look at your company. You registered it with the CIPC. Who owns the shares? I'm 100%, or together with, we are 100% black commissioned, signed. At the same time, guys, don't sign and then 2 weeks later go to the police station. No. Take the form, go to the police station, sign it in front, he stamps it on the same day. That will give you a valid BBEE certificate, right? If I, as Mercedes-Benz, then want to do business with you, I will ask you, what is your BBEE status? Can you send me proof? That's what you show me, that's what you send me, all right? And then I make up my mind with whom I do business. That's how it works, all right? That's the BBEE status. I hope I answered that. Very important. When you're a small company, you do not need to go to a verification agency. They're going to charge you money anyway. They're not allowed to certify you. Government has changed the rules. It must not be costly for you to do BEE if your company makes less than 50 million. Let me make that very clear. So all you do, you download the form, you go to the post office, police station, and you ask, it's for free. So your certificate is for free. They must never charge you for it. Very important. The big, exactly. And it lasts for a year, 12 months. Then you go back. Maybe you got a great tender. Maybe you made a lot of money. You need to re-look. What is my revenue? Maybe you short shares or you did a partnership, right? But generally speaking, guys, BEE is easy for anybody who makes less than 50 million and anybody who is black. That's it. It's not something you should be worried about. Come and visit me. I'm a consultant when you start making more than 50 million. All right? But then I'll help you out. Don't worry. I'll help you out with that. So it's very important for people to understand. So that's your BEE status. It's a brief and quick workshop. Was there any other question? Yes, the last question was on social economic. And I'd like to give Jane, would you like to answer?
Hi. I love socioeconomic development investment because it's a percentage that the company needs to pay to ensure that they are building the community. And it really, the most important thing about it for anybody who does do and gets socioeconomic development You have to make sure that everything is documented perfectly. I mean, because what happens if somebody invests in you and you don't do the correct paperwork and you don't do it with the right people, etc., they will not get their points and they will be very unhappy with you. So socioeconomic investment is great. And what it does do, for example, if somebody invests in a carpentry company, so events, we've at our village where we are, we've got quite a lot of different enterprises. But if somebody does invest in you, you have to make sure that every single element is documented clearly. You need to ensure that there is photographic evidence that the money that is said you have spent has been spent in the right way, because they're very, very tough about it. And socioeconomic development, I believe, is one of the biggest ones for growth. And even on the TV the other day, I heard one of the departments saying that they do want to push socioeconomic, because it is a lovely way for people to put money into your community and for you to do it properly. But I can just not emphasize enough, every single thing you do has to be correct. You must document everything, whatever you do, and don't spend it the wrong way. You need to be absolutely open and honest about what we're doing. But it's a beautiful program. I love SED. It's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. This was a warm-up, so I want more questions. I see the mic already went to the gentleman in the front. Gentleman in the front, is there a lady that has a question? I just want to look at the ladies in the room. No, we have a mic?
So why did you ask me?
No, it's not on. I do 3 questions. 3 questions at a time. You'll be first. All right. Question there, number 2. And question number... We're done. We've answered the question, but we do want to answer. 1, 2, and again, right at the back, I see you recognize number 3. Oh, sorry, 4. Don't worry. Yes, question number 1. The gentleman in the blue suit.
Yes, good morning. My name is Malcolm Ntlego. I know I raised my hand earlier on as somebody from the film. So we basically have a production company in Durban. We're based here from early 90s. And I thought when I walked into this, I was very excited when I saw, even though it says events technical, but back in the days there was something called technical production in South Africa. I was very excited because I want to talk about standards. The industry was made up of standards. And as time went by, yes, it was populated by monopoly companies, but we were encouraged to also open our own companies as black people, hence BEE. But because of red tape and so many different kind of things, it becomes very difficult, and I'll be honest. So we also ventured into actually owning stuff, because we knew that we don't want to front to do whatever it is. But even if, I know a lot of people in this room, in fact I don't see a lot of representations from KZN. There's a lot of black-owned companies now. And we still struggle, because when you look at big events, like recently, this major event that happened with the July, I was very, I didn't like what I saw, and it so happens that for me, I work with Ladysmith Black Mambazo internationally, and we've got such skills like this, and yet back home we don't get these opportunities to do what we have. Like in my company, Meltree Productions, we own every single thing, but very seldom you'll see Meltree Productions doing huge events. We'll just come on as like an engineer here and there, and yes, we venture into other industries because we want to try and stay afloat. And somebody mentioned that other people go and work overseas and it might not come back. We all think like that. I've taught many technicians who are up that side. So it's very true that we may talk like this, and I know when you do documentation for the government, these scorecards, whatever it is, and somebody mentioned who follows through that, because we're in an industry where it's not like Toyota. It's like you want to work, and who's there to see is that company legit enough to keep this thing on par. And yes, there are companies like that, but you look at the July, a lot of companies came from Johannesburg as if we don't exist in Durban at all, and it's embarrassing. So I want to just bring it to the table that sometimes it's great having this particular thing, but the industry is about standards. If we can maintain that so that we all know about the rigging standards, audiovisual sound, and then deal more in making sure that people are competent enough to execute, then maybe a lot of black companies and government will eventually hire us as black people, because for now it seems like they don't trust us to execute big events. Again, you spoke about Joy Celebration. If you see maybe the company that will be executing that, you'll be surprised. We just not seen. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mbuso Majola. I think the gentleman has covered most of what I wanted to say. I wanted to know what the criteria is for some people of Durban to actually participate in the big players such as BFI, as you just mentioned and showed us. Yeah, I'd just like to know that, and then I think most of my questions will be answered through answering the gentleman.
Sanibonani, angisikhuluma isingisi, esikhulunywe kakhulu. Kodwa-ke mina ngizokhuluma kakhulu ngale BEE ukuthi mhlawumbe ikhona yini umthetho, ngifisa ukwazi ukuthi ukhona nomthetho okhompela noma obekiwe like mandatory ophoqelela lezi inkampani lezi, ikakhulukazi ezongqiwa ukuthi mhlawumbe ziwakhonside lama company lawa amancane asafufusa, ikakhulukazi lawa ngaphansi kwama-BEE, lawa awethu nje esisayizamela kuwona, yabona. Ikhona nomthetho mhlawumbe ophoqelela lezi nkampani, njengalo mthetho uma kuwukuthi mhlawumbe ikhampani ifikile endaweni izokwenza umsebenzi lika-30%. So ngifisa ukuthola lapho ukuthi ukhona umthetho ophoqelela lezi nkampani. Ngiyabonga.
Sanibonani, Dumelang, Lotshani, good morning. Ngizothanda nje ukuthi kancane konje sinabelungu kodwa umama bekade sikhulume noma yiphi language. Ke tlo rata hore ke bue Sesotho ke Jackie ke hlaha kwana Qwaqwa Thabamahlo. Taba ya ka ke ena ya pele, ke ya hore document re tla ho yona re shebe, mara ne nka rata hore ha le ke la qala pele la lo shebisisa haholoholo, re tla di tlisa di-input re di romelle haholoholo the major ya hore jwalo ka mme a hlalositse a buile ka tourism, e ba dibaka tse mmalwa mo re ka reng maybe the industry ya music or events and tourism di a kopana, dintho tseo di a etsahala, like dipleke tse tshwanang le KZN, maybe Gauteng and Western Cape. Free State, it's only Bloemfontein mo dintho di etsahalang teng. When you go down diplekeng tse tshwanang le bo Qwaqwa, Reeds, of which mohlala sebaka se ke hlahang ho sona ke hlaha ka ga the biggest district ya Free State, district e rich, e tshwereng dithaba tse ntle, e tshwereng dibaka tsa metsi, of which re a tseba hore ne wetland ke moruo, ke dintho tse ngata tse ka tswang ho yona. But at the same time we are forced hore re ithole hore molebe re matha Golden Gate re sa tsebe gore ne why re tlamehile gore re mathere teng. So ne ke batla gore fela ne this forum re a ithabela e ne ka le ka tlala kena deep and le etse ka hohle hohle gore ntho e re ikopang ke gore ne nothing about us without us. Dintho tsa rona ha di tloe politiking di tle ho rona because ke tsa rona. Then the forum e etse ka hohle hohle gore ne di a monitor. Re na le dibaka tsa tourism tse teng but bohloko ko re ne di matsohong a di-politician ne di fedile ke masupi ha re bua tjena. So ntho ene ke tlo ikopa ke ya hore e nngwe ya dintho ke ya hore ha le ke la leka hore le etse a collision as much as le bua le ka di-skills tse shortang, so le tlise le di-sitas tsena di be haufinyana le tsona. Batjha be le buang ka bona NYDA le yona the 600 million e tshwereng e ska e ja fela e tlise kwano le yona re tlo e sebedisa mona ho di atse mo. Ke a leboha.
I'd like to give to Kevin to respond to the question relating to the participation of the technical productions services sector by TPSA in particular. And the gentleman up there who asking Zulu was asking what criteria is utilized for these entities to participate in events. As the first question came from the gentleman who was asking about why is it that the Joburg companies come all the way to Durban to lie in exclusion of them. You want to answer that?
Thank you, I can. So you mentioned the TPSA, actually you called it Technical Production South Africa, it's Technical Production Services Association. So over the last couple of years, we've had a number of associations working together, and about 7 years ago, the TPSA was reconstituted as a special interest group within SACIA. So in addition to running SACIA, I also run the TPSA. We spoke about Joyous Celebration. Sharif Baker, who's the project manager on Joyous Celebration, exploring any information that comes in. We really are trying to develop a B-BBEE scorecard that serves our sector, and serving our sector is something that given education.
Generally, dumelang. Lega, ngerti, sanbonan. From my side, nekita kalaka why as South African Produce Association, really approach a portfolio committee, trade and industry for this process for Iqal. It was that SARA, its core business is education and training. But Hatzerit's training, very more, it is a challenge to implement training. That's why you are the
operational plan must be there. The issue of my brother here in terms of locality and so forth, I did Makufe for the longest time ever. I'm one of the people who would always complain about other companies who will come to Bloemfontein during Makufe to do a few things while we are there. But it came a point where I was booked to go to Buyele Kaya in Eastern Cape. I was ashamed because I was complaining about other people coming to Bloemfontein to be part of us. One time I was booked in East London for Buyele Kaya Festival, the biggest, you know. So my issue is one, we should be united, guys. You know, if I'm in Durban today, I must make sure that I establish a relationship, you know, with few people to know that when I come next time or I receive a call, say to me, there's something in Durban, please come help us. So that I do not travel from Bloemfontein with my sound, my stage or whatever. I can always communicate with a brother in Durban and say, hey brother, do you by any chance have sound there? You know, you trust that. And guys, at the same time, we are a blessed generation of social media. Use it. You know, if you have a powerful sound, if you have a beautiful things, throw in there. You know, let's all be friends on social media so that we can always check your work. Because I cannot just risk from Bloemfontein to come here and not knowing the sound of that you have, the marquee tent, the flooring, and so forth. Dr. Kevi, the other thing that I'd love to ask you to please consider, please come back to the development of music. Because when I go to an event in Bethlehem, in Velkom, or my hometown in Kronstadt, I'm forced to have local people, musicians. And with all due respect, there are levels in life, guys. There are levels in life. We get told all the time that Thabo must come and perform there, you know, whereas there is high-profile people who are there. Dede Gebi, please come back. Please help these kids production of music on how to do. You did wonders with Mendoza, you know, and I still don't understand even today how you spoke to him, because he doesn't understand your language. You don't understand his language, but you know, I really think you guys spoke the music. Yes, you know, yes. So, Forum, I thank you guys so much. I thank you guys so much. I think we're gonna learn so much from this meeting or the workshop. Thank you so much.
Thank you. My name is Romeo Katzimani from South Africa Music Industry Council. Moderator and the chairperson, firstly, let me thank this forum, more especially individuals within the forum, by having such a good responsibility and also commitment to drive this process. In fact, to me, this is the most important program you are bringing to us after we're hit by COVID-19. Even our government failed to come with such a good program to this industry of ours, because we know that we are marginalized. Secondly, I think it's not about what China said, that we need to interact with you individually. In the previous set of questions, this element of doing this submission, where are they going to be submitted? Because it was nice when we came into this room, we saw all your faces there, including your organization, which are abbreviated. But I will advise next time, improve that. Put the full names of these organizations, because that is exactly what we want, more than what we are bringing into us. Put the full names of those organizations, including contact details. Contacts, there is no need for us to ask you your contacts. They must be there in black and white, because the information which is relating to your organization is much more important to us, more than these codes you are bringing to us. That is crucial. Then number 3, my sister Lapulindi and somebody else said, this forum is radical. You are in KZN. You are not there yet. We want you to be more radical. We are going to support you to be radical 100%. Right now, we are not there yet. And I'm happy you are approaching that. Simply because, no, just give me time. You are in KZN. The audience which is in front of you is not us. We are not even 10% if you are talking about events. And that's the reason why this province is leading in events in South Africa. But the people who are supposed to be here, companies, organizations, are not here. Then you ask yourself, how were we invited? What strategy, methodology we're using? So I think in that part, we need to improve it. Let us make sure the relevant stakeholders are here, because to us, it is very, very important. We don't want to fail you after coming up with such a good initiative. We don't. Because to me, I can't understand, even after this meeting, I will call the Department of Arts and Culture in the province, why they are not here. Why Department of Economic Development, Tourism, and Environmental Affairs, they are not here. Because within that department, there is a creative industry unit. Why they are not here? Our own municipality of eThekwini, they are leading throughout Africa, supporting events. Why they are not here? So at the end of the day, this good team of this forum, we don't want them to be bohlulwe ngama politician. I'm a politician in terms of consultation and protocol, they are marvelous. Learn from them. If President Ramaphosa is coming to KZN, Premier of KwaZulu-Natal is going to be next to the president. If he's coming for a certain program, that particular MEC of that department is going to be there, including the mayor of that locality. Hence, I'm saying, why this department are not here? And the moderator is mentioning the KZN Film Commission. We don't want them to be mentioned. They must be here to say so-and-so is going to assist you with this and that and that and that. If we are talking about the BE codes for this industry, for the events, why that commission is not here? That is a name of radical I'm talking about. All the stakeholders, they must be here. We are not supposed to interact with Department of Sports, Arts and Culture and DTI only. I was happy, Kevin, when we were dealing with that first slide. I saw the face of a Deputy Minister of Tourism. Why they are not here as a department? As we are talking about, we want to professionalize our industry so that we are respected. That means both Department of Education and the higher education, they are supposed to be part and parcel of this. Because what we want to do, we want to support this forum, but we can't if these departments are not there. And if they are giving you hard time, let us know so that we can do something. For instance, after this meeting, I'm going to call the MEC of Arts and Culture, the mayor, the premier, so that for you to come back to do this properly in the front of the audience. They must be involved. They are our government. Lastly, because we are running out of time, I was so worried when I heard from Eastern Cape moderator that they were driven by 2 taxis to attend this session in Cape Town. And you ask yourself the distance between Eastern Cape and the Western Cape. And when they came back, it was painful to me as a leader of the industry, one of the leaders of the industry. They arrived in Cape Town after 12. As a result, they didn't capture what we were presenting all of it there. Then the question is, what is failing this forum to go to each and every province in South Africa and deliver the good work you have done? What is failing you there? Because if there are challenges, let us know so that we can support you, so that you move from one province to another province to make sure this program is done properly. Let us do it correctly, because we are not going to be soft now. We need to be radical as we use that word, because COVID taught us something. We're the most affected during the time of COVID, and nobody cared about us. And I'm happy TTI is here, and I hope next time even us, music industry, will get incentive, because when I checked those incentives, they were talking to film industry only. But at the end of the day, thank you so much.
I'm gonna give the gentleman in the back, does he still have the mic? There was a question, otherwise I'm closing, we're almost
just say
getting ready for lunch.
Can we
There's
just
a
say
mic
something?
over there. Yeah, I'll give it to you as well. You see, it always happens like this. When it's before lunch. No, 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 you have the mic.
Okay, thank you very much again for this opportunity, and it is a wonderful initiative, I must admit. Again, Nikamalam Malcolm Tlego. And as I said earlier on, I just want to really emphasize this point. Beautiful document, and the fact that you guys are really taking this thing serious, our industry seriously. As you started, it is a money industry. You know, I mean, as I said earlier on, I'm the engineer for Ladysmith Black Mambazo. And I'm sorry I might not be here after this, because tomorrow we go on tour for another month. But when I saw this opportunity, I thought I would like to take the time to come and actually just witness, you know, what's going on here. I also like to really, again, emphasize the point about this quality that I'm talking about. Because yes, I'm proud to be a black person and involved in the industry and also make a change, you know. And as a proud Durbanite, to actually take the skills all the way to the world and showcase what we have out there. But when we come back home, we don't have exactly the same kind of opportunities. We'd like to do it, you know, all this training, and because that's where it's at. And when you look at it, yes, it talks about the codes. It's wonderful. But where I'd like for you guys to actually engage more, because the topic is beautiful, you know. There's technical production services. It's technical production. Our industry is technically orientated. It talks about the quality, it talks about everything has to be perfect. You can't have an event with a feedback microphone and it's just not happening. So it says you can tick the box and have 100% and you get the job. Far too many times I get to an event and it's not on, it's not acceptable. But they ticked this. But the industry is not about this. It's about what happens. It's the quality of the event, whether it's the AV, audiovisual sound, you know. Some companies, you know, it's sad that they would get the job from the government because they tick the box. But the execution is just not on. It's not on. You understand? So I'd love, since it's about that we address that more. That's why I asked about who's the person to babysit that, because far too many times that same company would not kind of be blacklisted. They'll be getting the job on and on and on and on, and yet it's doing damage to our industry, which is supposed to be a money-making industry. Please, I'd like you to address that particular thing. It's the quality that I'm talking about again, in order for us to make it more money-making and importing other people from outside. Please, thank you very much.
Ngicela unibingelela bonke abantu abalenjini. Igama lami my lord. Upresident wembumba lo Business Forum okhulumela ama-artist la KwaZulu Natal, especially ama up and coming. Ngizoxolisa ukufika late lana. Ngikufanele ngifike early. So ngiphuma komunye umhlangano. Yabo. Ngikhuluma isiZulu bafethu angikwazi ukukhuluma isiNgisi angifundanga. Yabo, la into engifuna ukuyikhuluma isekutheni abe kukhulunywa kahle. Not for mhlambe le platform la. Abantu bakhuluma kahle if beza kubantu bezos addressa something. Yabo? Ngiya kuphi na ngiya kulento le ye radical economic transformation. Ukuthi kuqaleka ama forum is because abantu bakhuluma kahle uma behlezi. Kube right approach, even right in terms of implementation. Uma usufika ku one-on-one consultation e-office ufika kumuntu uzoletha i-proposal or uzocela whatever usukuzoyiletha. Usungasayitholi service e-right ngalesikhathi kade address wena. Yabo? Lokho kwenza ukuthi umuntu azaze njani nami aboshwe emgwaqeni kade enze njani na eteleka ukuthi upresident akaphumi because sasi under pressure sibophekile. Yabo kumanje elokishini la ngihlala khona kaMashu esinqawini iy'ngane ey'ncane ezenza i-art zimile. There is no opportunities. Kodwa makukhulunywa lana kulokho kugcitshwa kuthiwa no, there's opportunities. Siyababona obani. There is no opportunities for the young people abasemalokishini. Iy'ngane zamantombazane, iy'ngane zabafana basema-drugsini kumanje. Bayeke isikole. Theatre production. Wona wonke lo ma-sector lawo. Anganakekile iy'ngane zihlezi emakhaya ziney'ngane. Angisho yabo lo. Sihamba sama-organization si-up and down. Because even now ama-organization uma sebehlezi kanje ibona abaphenduke babe ama-priorities okuqala more than abantu ababafaka la ekhundleni. Lokho ngikusho ngokungafuni ukuthenjwa la. Even anyone angifuni ukuthenjwa because what I'm talking about ngikhuluma ngokuthi iy'ngane zakithi ey'ncane they have to benefit. Not ukuthi wena ulwela iy'ngane kanti ufuna ukubenefitha wena. Yabo? Nikhulume izinto ezinhle phambi kwabantu la. Kushawa izandla. Kodwa ekugcineni ingane ingabenefit. Ingane lo yagcina ukuthola igigi ngoDecember last year. Yabo? Nina because ni leadership. Each and every opportunity eqhamukayo ifikela la. Then kube nina decide ukuthi okay ubani kuqala or mhlawumbe cherry up because it's close to me. That is unacceptable in front of the people, in front of God as well, in front of the human being. If you are the leader, you have to be led by example. Honestly, it's very important. Yabong.
You know, there are always people who find a way to close most beautifully. Durban. I told you the most beautiful thing is that we are events and entertainment, right? We are. But now the point is, let's own it so that we can pass it on to our children, right? And it hurts me to hear that we always have to go overseas and praise overseas, where else it comes from right here. Actually, in our culture, it comes through from the earth. It comes through us. I would like the chair. Also,
everybody is all of a sudden become an event planner. At EXA, the Exhibition and Events Association of Southern Africa, we do deal a lot with companies in the Free State, and I do recognize the growth there. And what I wanted to say to you in terms of training, that is what we are ultimately doing, is yes, no event is complete without proper sound, proper production, proper training. So that is what EXA endeavors to do to all our members. So we've got startup and individual packages. And if there is an issue, I know in terms of both the events industry, exhibition industry, film industry, we have codes of ethics that we hold people accountable for and standards that we've set. And if they don't comply, then there are procedures that take place to rectify those situations. So just to answer that, we agree with you and we hear you, but you need to belong to an association or comply with association standards, and that way you will be regulated. If that answers you. Thank you very much.
The name says it all, Julie, my Lord. I'm going. I'm getting hungry now, and I'm sure people are hungry too. I'm told people that haven't registered must go and register, otherwise we're not going to put food. Did you register, my Lord? Go and register, my Lord. You have to register there, my lord, otherwise you are not going to eat. And you and me are becoming close friends from today. You have to eat, my lord.
Briefly, thanks. Thanks, Romeo, for your invaluable input. Fully supported.
When elders
Thank you.
speak, we still wait.
Okay, this one is, I don't know if you guys realize, but we were streaming live today. We were streaming live. There's a link and whatever. And I'm speaking specifically to those of you now. I'm looking into the sky here. This is like the streaming audience. Okay, so guys, just give a shout out to those who are watching online, please. Right, so for those of you online who experience some sound problems or whatever the case may be, please also go to the other events because we covered a lot of the material there. And those links are still existing. We need everybody on board with this process. Wherever you are, here in this venue, throughout South Africa, join this process. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of this session. It was indeed a very fruitful interaction. We really value the inputs that came through today, and we have noted them. They certainly will come into the document that we have circulated. And as I indicated earlier, that there's still an opportunity to further make inputs, whether oral or written, as soon as we start the gazetting process. You will have that opportunity to do that. I want to thank your manner of engagement, of the discipline that you showed and the commitment, especially the two provinces, Mpumalanga and Free State, who made time to come all the way to come and listen to us and give their inputs. We really value that, and we thank you very much for that. And of course, our host province, KZN, we also thank them. We are aware from the inputs that were made, especially by the penultimate speaker, Mr. Tetsimani, that some of the key stakeholders are not here. And his input in terms of coming back to this province and inviting those relevant stakeholders are highly considered, and hopefully will be able to come back here. We've deliberately structured this session in the manner that we have against what we've done in the past, because we used to have long sessions running until 4:30. Today, because of the consideration of the two provinces that have a long journey back, we've decided to finish it now, which means from now on we're going to have lunch. Lunch is going to be served at the ground level of this building, and immediately after that, that's the end of the session, we will allow everyone to depart back to home. Once more, thank you for your time and travel back safe.